Hi, I'm Christine Brennan from the County Comptroller's Office.
And,
Morning, Rich.
good morning, and Luke is here from the county engineer's office. Yeah, well, Kate, sorry. Um, She gets thinner, I get heavier, and I'm looking at myself earlier in the screen, and it's not pretty. So, let's call the meeting to order. Roll call, but we need to. No. Did everyone have a chance to read the minutes of the September meeting? Are there any comments or questions? Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Terrific. You want to start with these? Yeah. You want to start with these?
Yeah, sure. Amy?
Oh, yep. So on the line, we have Kevin Testo from Bonadio, who is with, has been our auditor for the past few years. So he's gonna give a presentation for this year's audit.
All right, yes, thanks, Amy. Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here. This is the easy part of the audit. I'll probably only need 3 to 5 minutes of your time. As Amy said, I'm Kevin Testo. I'm a partner with the Bonadio Group. We are setting out to start the 2024 audit of the Alliance. We put together a very brief presentation, which you may have in your package, but I'm going to share it right now. And as a reminder, this pre-meeting is really just to lay out the plan. Lets us go through what we call required communications to those that are charged with governance, which is yourselves. And just give you an opportunity if there's any questions before we start any work, any concerns. This is a great time to bring those concerns or questions up. So that being said, I'll get right into it. We have engagement letters out. The engagement letters say that we are going to audit the December 31st, 2024 financial statements of the Alliance, and that we will prepare your Form 990. Those are the 2 deliverables that we will be hired to do. We will work with Amy in management to make sure this is an efficient and effective process. Ultimately, we want to be done before your March deadline, which we've always met in the past and we intend to do this year. The great news, Amy will be happy with this, that there is no new accounting standards to adopt in the state.
Someone from the staff, take a seat in the back.
In the past few years, there's been a lot that we've had to adopt. Last year was the measurement of the allowance for doubtful accounts, a different way of looking at that. So this is really just year 2 of re-examining any type of bad debt on receivables. Now, in the case of the Alliance, the receivables and revenue streams are really just grant revenue and management service revenue that you collect from ACBDC. All those receivables are typically collected before year end, so I would expect that there would be no bad debt or anything to consider, but it's out there and a reminder that it's still in play. So as I mentioned, our role is to give an opinion on the financial statements for 2024. The opinion states as to whether the financial statements are free from material misstatement. Any audit does not go through every transaction. That would be nearly impossible, nor would you want us to do that. But we set relative materiality and risk of where things could go wrong. Speaking of that, we are required to tell you what significant risks lie within the audit process. This is not specific to the Alliance per se, but these are the 2 significant risks that we as auditors across Bonadio have stated that this is where we should spend the majority of our time. First one, management override of controls, relates to the proper segregation of duties ensuring that there's proper review of finances throughout the year, and Amy's not the only person that has control of finances. And then revenue recognition, making sure that the grant revenue or any other type of revenue, even rental income, is appropriately stated during the audit period that we're looking at. Those two risks, I will say, are also listed in the engagement letter, but we put it into the presentation just so everybody gets to see those. Here's our timing. We're kicking it off today by meeting with you. We will actually have some of our staff members looking at interim financial information this week. So we will start assessing those risks, assessing our materiality, understanding the processes and controls that are in place. It's not until the January, early February timeframe. That's when we will need the final numbers in place, and that's when we dive in and create the financial statements and test those significant material numbers. And then hopefully, and I do believe that it's not on my calendar yet, but we'll be ready to present to this board at your March meeting, so that you will have plenty of time to file in terms of your due date. Here are the people in charge. Same staff and manager as in prior years. So there is a consistent approach to the audit process, which helps everybody. But more importantly, if you need to reach us, our information is included on this slide. And this is just a reminder. I will end it with this. I often get a question is, do you guys look at fraud? Really, yes, we consider fraud in terms of the significant risks that I mentioned. It's nearly impossible for an audit to detect the fraud because we would have to look at every transaction. We are mostly concerned with, are the financial statements free from misstatement, as I mentioned, and that really drives, all right, is revenue over-recognized or under-recognized based on fraudulent type of manipulation. So that concludes the required presentation, the required communication. I'll open it up to any questions, thoughts.
I just want to remind everyone, Rich Rosen is chairman of the audit committee, but because it's such a small board, we have always acted as the board as the committee, which is why this presentation is to all of us as opposed to a separate audit committee. So I thank you for, don't frown at me about that. I thank you for your continued support, Rich, and questions for Kevin? Well, I hope the whole audit is that simple.
I hope so too, but you know, history has said it is. So we will let you know in March.
All right. Thank you very much, Kevin.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank you all. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
So I think we'll go back to the items in order of the agenda, and I shift to the governance committee and Laura Seldon.
Yeah, thanks. I pretty short report today. I know our council was talking about conflict of interest, but the first item, we actually have an action item, is to fill our secretary vacancy. And there's a resolution in the packet. And as the governance committee chair, I recommend appointing Helen Chapman as secretary of the board.
Helen
Brooks.
I couldn't read at 8:30 in the morning, and I knew this. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Clearly, I have something else in my head. Sorry about that. Recommend Helen Brooks as secretary of the board.
The resolution's on page 4 in your package. We all thank Antoinette for numbering the pages.
We'll just need a first and a second and then a vote.
I'll move it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
You're good with it, right?
Oh, so we're pretty quick there. We're probably gonna ask that first, right?
And I'll take over just for a minute on conflict of interest. So we have both a conflict of interest and an ethics policy. As part of the conflict of interest policy, we have a snapshot in time where we require the board members to fill out conflict of interest forms. And this is basically to help staff and to make the board members sort of consciously think for a moment about what roles they may serve in outside of the entity, both from an employment or another board position or something like that, to determine if any of those entities may have a relationship or some kind of, whether it's financial or, and that's normally how it would run into, I'll give you one quick example in a minute, but basically, is there any relationship with the authority that they and the staff should be aware of? The basic rule is that if you have a financial, familial, or a personal relationship with some entity that then has a relationship with the authority, that should be disclosed. And normally it would result in the board member both disclosing that and then recusing themselves from any deliberations or decisions based on that entity or that relationship. So for example, if we were going to finance with a bank and that bank, one of our board members worked for, that board member would step aside, disclose that, leave the room, the board could deliberate that without the presence of that board member. And that's what happened. So the annual disclosures have been submitted, we've looked at them, we don't see any existing relationships or anything, certainly from staff's perspective or the governance committee's perspective, that would rise or even cause sort of the procedures we've talked about, where a conflict could actually be there or perceived. So we'll do this again every year, but again, this is a snapshot in time. So if your relationship changed, if your employer changed, if your board positions grow or subtract, you should let staff know, because staff can help you sort of police these conflicts, because sometimes they come up in ways that people don't necessarily expect. And it's good to have more than just your own set of eyes on it. So that's here, and that's the report, and I'll be quiet.
So Tom, if I'm just thinking about from the firm, if we have a client, a firm that at some point wants to come before the board or something like that, I'll just call you and say,
Yes, sir.
hey, so-and-so is gonna be applying for something, and then I'm. Perfect.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Just one thing, my experience has been that there are going to be these kind of conflicts, this is a tight-knit community, we are all kind of operating in the same areas, so, it is expected that there are going to be these conflicts, we just have to disclose them and then do what our council suggests we do, but that is in the ordinary course of business probably going to come up.
And this whole thing is in keeping with rules and regulations and the transparency that we all talked about from the beginning when this board was originally set up. So thank you, Tom. Are there any other questions about that? Then let's move on to the Finance Committee, and Ellen will say that.
Thank you. So as everybody can see, I'm gonna reflect on page, I believe it's gonna be 27. This is the 10-month actuals compared to budget. As you can see, our total income is $5.6 million, which is well above the budget amount of $2.7 million. Actually 2.8 million over budget. Two items drive that. We have received $800,000 from overtime, which is $300,000 over the budgeted amount of $500,000. And then, of course, the stage grant income, we received $4 million, where the budget was for $1.5 million. And I believe we're gonna get another $6 million next March.
That's correct.
Yep. Yeah. Is there, one question, is there a time frame we have to disperse the money? Is there a sunset period, or is it no?
For the ARPA monies, yes, for the stage monies, no.
Okay.
And what is the timing on the ARPA monies? You have that?
The end of 2026.
Okay. So obviously that's driving the positive variance to our income. And with that, we have $5 million in bank accounts. 3.5 million is, I believe, in a CD with KeyBank, and then also a sweep account as well as a checking account, I think all at Key, correct?
That's right.
So obviously, our balance sheet looks really strong because we've received these funds and then put them on deposit. From a expense standpoint, we are, on operating expenses, we are approximately $293,000 better than budget. We had budgeted $1,278,000 in operating expenses, and we're coming in at $984,000. A big part of that variance, obviously, is some salaries that I know we're now starting to staff up, but we budgeted for a higher level for the staffing to be in place earlier, so we're going to be looking positive for that. So all in all, our total change in that position is $4.4 million. We had budgeted a loss or negative $93,000, so we're $4.5 million better or positive variance to our budgeted change in that position, again, due to the various grant funding that we received.
So, Kevin, do you want to make any comments about any of that?
Maybe anything?
Yeah, I was gonna talk about this in the CFO report, just, a couple updates for November that, we have received the first 200,000 of the ARPA out of the 600,000. For the CD that we had, the 3.5 million, I've moved, 1.5 of that into our, bank account in preparation for some stage grants that may go out by the end of the year or the first quarter.
Just, we still have not paid out on the grant for Plug Power yet. We're ready to go, we're just waiting for.
Well, we're not going to give them the interest that we're earning on them.
No.
Is that $3 million?
3 million.
Wow. Amy, do you want, well, first of all, that's just a report of Alan's, there's no vote. Amy, do you have anything else that you'd like to?
That's it for me.
Okay. Let's move to Kevin O'Connor and all the interesting things going on here at the line.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We're going to talk about most of these items down below, but I just kind of state that the activity level on economic development in the county is very strong. I think it's a testament to the county executive's economic strategy that he did back in 2019. Some of you were involved in the creation of that. It really does show that time flies. We're going on 5 years since that's been done now. So one of the things that I'd like to bring to the board is a refresh on our strategy. And Luke and Caitlin have talked that there may be some money in the county to be able to do that. But I think, just to make sure that our strategy is fresh and we're still going after, we're still focused on those things with the highest impact, I think it'd be good to have a refresh. We did stumble across a kind of somewhat surprising statistics. The new business incorporation numbers in Albany County are through the roof. They've increased, over the last couple of years by 34%. And I thought, well, maybe that's just a function of the recovery from the pandemic and it's happening all over. But the surrounding counties are nowhere near that. They're in the 2, 3, 7% range. So I thought, well, maybe it's just something that, is unique to, the Department of State being in Albany County and their file, but that doesn't explain the year over year. The Department of State has always been in Albany County, and yet we've seen this 34% increase in business corporations. Now, a lot of these are LLCs that people are starting to, purchase properties with, limit their liabilities. And, I guess, you figure some number of them are those people that dropped out of the workforce and started their own. But I think you can say with some degree of confidence, if 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 the business corporation numbers were going down, the county executive and the alliance would certainly be criticized for that fact. So we might as well take credit for them being increasing. We have some folks taking a look into these numbers, but we think it's the highest percentage increase of business and corporations anywhere in the state. I have to admit, I don't really understand what's driving that, but we're gonna try to get behind that and figure it out. Maybe that's something we have our consultants do when we do the strategy refresh. We are still focused on our areas of interest. Offshore wind is certainly the most prominent. We've still got significant interest and, $1 billion+ worth of investment in the ports of Albany and Queens. There are some headwinds that the industry has faced, not the least of which is the turnover in the White House and, the resultant change, if any, in energy policy. But, that may have a little bit of a chilling effect for a while, but we are working on and one in particular, extremely large project for one of the ports. We have a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't talk about it, but the state and the local government people are fully engaged, and we'll see what happens on that. I think the second largest opportunity that we have before us in Albany County is derivative of this semiconductor initiative. We all heard Senator Schumer announce a week or so back the appointment of the semiconductor center at the nanotechnology and the New York Creates Group. That's going to bring a significant amount of money in there, and whereas I don't think I haven't been able to identify a site in our county that would accommodate a chip fab facility, along the lines of Global Foundries or Micron out in Syracuse or Wolfspeed up in Utica. I do think we are, and I'm told, we are very well positioned to attract the semiconductor supply network. And, these are kind of, I categorize them as mostly light industrial manufacturers, that supply the components that the chip fab plants use to make these chips. And this again is something that's being supported by the federal government from the viewpoint not only of economic development, but for national security. We all saw during the pandemic what happened when there was a shortage in chips. We couldn't get our cars serviced and a whole bunch of other things. Well, to have fabrication facilities here is almost useless from a national security standpoint unless you have the supplier network here to support them. And much of the supply network is still offshore. Much of the semiconductor industry is still offshore, but that is changing. With the incentives that Senator Schumer created with the CHIPS Act, and Governor Hochul kind of followed suit on that with with the related activity. I think there's going to be some demand here, particularly with, as if and when Micron gets their facility off the ground, and of course with the expansion of Global Foundries and the likes of Wolfspeed. I think we've got some real opportunities there, and that's all going to be dependent on us having the sites, the power, and the people, the three people, the three Ps, property, power, and people, that we like to say. We are still, and Clayton Besh, I think is going to be talking, I know you're not on the agenda today, but Clayton Besh is working on the development of the Altech Steel site, which is right now one of the best heavy industrial manufacturing sites in our county because of the infrastructure there. But there's a lot to do there. You know, it is a Superfund site. We negotiated a liability agreement with the Department of Environmental Conservation, where they agreed to put the property in the brownfield tax credit program and allowed us to cap the site as opposed to digging everything up, because the really bad stuff there is in the ground. So, you know, we are working on the sites, and, you know, it's still a struggle site by site on power. You know, whether we have generating capacity or not, you know, the challenge is oftentimes, as we found out in Bethlehem with Plug Power, the distribution lines. You know, the distribution lines are just not there to carry, or as they say, wheel heavy amounts of power into these industrial sites. You know, there is a resurgence of manufacturing going on throughout our country. You know, any of those of you who were around, not many of you, as I look around the room, probably back in the 80s, you, me, you know, when manufacturing left New York State. You know, I can remember there was a plant up in Horseheads, New York, which was a big manufacturing facility, 1 million square feet of space, and they left to go down south, and then they ultimately left to go offshore. But there's this phenomena going on now that's called reshoring or rehoming, where companies that have gone offshore to do their manufacturing are now coming back, either because of economics or to mitigate geopolitical risk. And you know, we've got to be ready to take advantage of those things. Maybe I'll kind of get right into the rest of my presentation down here. You know, the other.
One question
Yeah, sure.
for the fabs, the chip fabs, and I know they require an enormous amount of water. Is the water issue in Albany County, is that a big gating factor?
No, actually, we've got pretty good water in the county. It's just the assembly of, you know, the couple thousand acres that you need, and then to have all the attributes that is necessary for a chip factory. You know, they have these quirky things. You can't be next to a rail line because they can't tolerate any seismic activity.
Vibration, yeah.
Right. But you know, the people in Clay, you know, it took them, I think, 10 or 15 years to assemble that site that they put together for Micron. And we haven't been able to identify, you know, that kind of property within the county.
That's the largest one.
Yeah, that's enormous. That's even dwarfs Global Foundries, even with the expansion at Global Foundries. But you know, this is going to be something that I think you know, we've got to think about carefully and, you know, exploit whatever opportunities we can on the supply chain side.
Well, I mean, with, you know, creates and SUNY Poly
Right.
being a national semiconductor research center for the country. But I think they're getting $125 million from the federal government as well as what New York's doing.
Right.
So it makes sense that somebody wanted to be close to that.
Yeah, and you know, there's a lot of activity going on up at the Fuller Road campus that, you know, you just don't hear a lot about. You know, Clayton accompanied the county executive on a trip up there because Clayton speaks Japanese. And what was the name of the group again, Clayton?
Rapidus.
Rapidus.
It's a Hokkaido semiconductor factory, and they have 300 engineers here in Albany working with IBM, trying to develop the 2 millimeter solution, which they're then going to replicate. But they plan to be here with those people for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And we never knew anything about it. Sorry. But that's,
So, you know, those kind of things, you know, really start to have an impact and effect on the economy of the county. And, you know, we just got to figure out how do we organize ourselves to take the best advantage of it. You know, what kind of incentives do we need to come up with to do this?
And they're constructing a very large nanofab facility right now.
They do these kind of prototype, you know, facilities, and some of the tools and lines that they're building up in at Fuller Road exist nowhere else in the country, and maybe only 1 or 2 other places in the world. I mean, that resources, you know, as Alan says up there, is really, you know, somewhat underplayed and not fully appreciated. by many people in the region here. And many people really don't know what's going on up there, but it really is, the hub of semiconductor activity, again, thanks to Senator Schumer, and who knows what's going to happen. We're hearing that the CHIPS Act is likely not going to be terribly affected, notwithstanding, Senator Schumer's loss of the majority in the U.S. Senate.
But I read in the paper this morning that the Commerce Department intended to allocate all the money in the CHIPS Act before January 20th. But what I don't understand is, can a new administration change something like the funding for Micron in Syracuse?
I don't know, the state money, obviously they can't, but I don't know about the CHIPS Act funding, that they can go back and, maybe somebody else here.
I don't know off the top of my head whether they can, they can go into, if it's congressionally, basically an earmark, they can go in and put the thumb on it, but I don't know if it's part of it's part of like a statutory act.
They probably
I think
have
it's
to-
harder. It's also
Congress
politically
would have to-
dangerous.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right.
But they
right.
can move tax credits though, going forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's different though. Look, this area has been very fortunate. When we were talking about water, Senator Vernon brought water to the facility out in Malta when they needed water. We've had Schumer, and we've been very lucky. And the question is what can be disrupted? And I hope very little of this stuff.
Well, the other, in that same category, I know Plug Power is, frantically racing around to try to draw down or to secure that $1.3 billion loan from the U.S. Energy Office, before the change in administration.
Because there's an unknown, and even during the campaign, the Senate leader, when he was campaigning with Brandon, with a former congressman now, Brandon Williams.
Yep.
When he talked about, we're gonna get rid of all of that, the CHIPS Act was part of that. So, if they're smart, they won't, because Republicans have made so many inroads, particularly in upstate New York, and then you have Stefanik, who's going to be the ambassador, but still she's in the cabinet, so if they're smart, they won't.
Yeah.
But I would not bank on it.
It's risky.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even the political calculus on this, which I was surprised to find out, we were at one of our briefings by somebody, I don't know if it was a NYSERDA one of the offshore wind, and it came as a surprise to me, the state with the heaviest dependence on alternative energy, Texas. Mostly solar, but some wind. But, of all the states in the country, clearly a red state, so I think, the White House is, gonna be a little, they're really gonna have to, sift through this and determine, whose ox they want to gore and whose ox they are goring when they make these policy changes.
And I think the chip stuff, there's really no there's no, call it, somebody on the other side of the table fighting it, right? With the alternative energy stuff, you have the oil and gas
Yeah,
guys say,
yeah.
whoa,
Right,
what about us? I think that's the one thing we have going for us on the chip, on the.
It's manufacturing jobs staying in the United States.
In the United States, you have national security, okay, you want to.
Less dependence on Taiwan.
Right,
all this-
right, and all the risks there. So I think that we have that going for us on the chip side.
But, again, all of these are probably a good idea just to kind of revisit our strategy and make sure we're chasing those things that we, or at least understand the dynamics behind the things we're chasing. The last thing, Tom is going to talk a little bit about the service agreement, but we are staffing the Albany County Pine Hills Land Authority. I serve as CEO of that. Amy serves as CFO, and Dylan Turk is our staff person on there. We've been meeting, the board has been impaneled, got some great board members on there. many of whom you would know, people from the industry, people who are familiar with, some of the dynamics going on there. The authority has taken the position they want to acquire the entire campus, and they are attempting to apply for designation as what they call the stalking horse bidder, which is a term of art in the bankruptcy court. This proceeding is being in front of Judge Littlefield in Federal District Bankruptcy Court. The designation as a stalking horse bidder provides a certain number of legal and financial protections to the authority in the bid. That if they are overbid, they get a breakup fee to cover the expenses that they've incurred. That there are certain legal protections for them as well. So that is in place. The authority has hired their own bankruptcy attorney, Peter Pastore from O'Connell and Ronowitz, did some work for the county on the central warehouse. And he's been representing us. We filed a motion objecting to the time frame that the college put out there to get these bids in, which is by December 4th, which is basically tomorrow, given the Thanksgiving holiday and everything. And there were some other requirements. They wanted the authority to put down a deposit if they were going to apply as a stalking horse bidder. The authority has no ability to pay a deposit. They have bonding authority up to $80 million, certainty of funds. The county has agreed to, or is in the process of agreeing to pay the debt service on whatever the amount of bonds are that need to be issued to procure the properties. Judge Littlefield heard those arguments. He did not change the time frame. We asked for a month extension. He declined that. And the basic reason for that it would have been a violation of the something called DIP financing, debtor in possession financing that the college has assumed. The college has incurred an additional DIP financing line up to $10.8 million on top of the $50 million that is already owed to the bondholders. And that money is supposed to go for the cost of operating from when the college runs out of money, which is expected to happen shortly, until the time that they close on the property. So the judge did not give us any relief on the timing, but he did waive the deposit for us. So the authority is aggressively working on a bid proposal back to the college and the bondholders. You have to make the offer to the college, but who owns the property? But the bondholders really have most of the high value property encumbered as a condition of their bonds. So very dynamic situation, very volatile. And I think I can say that the authority got one purpose in life, and that is to acquire the properties of the college, but they will not do so at any cost. This is not, something that, is, they will, the way that the authority has couched it is, whereas they respect the fact that the bondholders and the unsecured creditors are owed $50 million and plus, but the authority can only pay for the property what they are likely able to get back in return once the property is developed. This is taxpayer money that the authority is dealing with. It's bonding, but it's tax exempt bonding, basically backed by Albany County. And thankfully, Albany County has got such a great bond rating that these bonds will go out at a very high rating, and it's expected that they will be very attractive to the street in doing that.
Kevin, who's the ultimate decision maker? Is it the board of the college and the debt holders?
Yeah, there's apparently, the way I understand it, this all has to go in front of the bankruptcy court. But there is the debtor, there's a group, the debtor and the credit committee. The credit committee consists of the bondholders and the unsecured creditors. Well, the bondholders, the DIP lender, and the unsecured creditors. So, you know, a lot of moving parts, and bankruptcy court has some very unique ways of doing business. You know, many of you, and I'm sure Alex, you've been involved in some of these. As I was sitting there were several bankers up there, and other cases where some of their assets were going into bankruptcy. But this is something that's here and now. You know, we've got to get this number, our bid number out to the college and the debtors, and the authority has, you know, done a pretty exhaustive search and discussion with local developers, property managers, appraisal companies to help inform them on coming up with a bid strategy, and that's you know, that's going to be you know, communicated to the college and the bondholders very soon. So you know, you are all funding the activities of the Albany County Pine Hills Land Authority. There is no operating funds at all for the authority, so the Alliance is doing this. And maybe this might be a good time, Tom, to go into the services agreement. What we expect to have happen, if there is a deal, and there's no guarantee that there is a deal, but if there is a deal, that we would capitalize the expenses of the authority in the bond act. So those expenses would be things like the legal costs that we're fronting now, staff time, everything else, but also at the operating cost for operating the campus for a period of time. We're thinking, the authority is thinking that's probably going to take several years to redevelop the campus in full. And in that time, they're going to have to, you know, the authority is going to be the owner of the property and would have to maintain, secure, and operate those properties to prevent further degradation of those buildings. So, you know, big project. A very, very interesting thing. Judge Littlefield said this is the single largest real estate bankruptcy transaction in his time at bankruptcy court. He's been there for quite a while. So this is a big deal, and you know, this is gaining national attention in the bankruptcy, at the bankruptcy court.
So we understand the county support for all of this, or there wouldn't be the authority.
That's right.
How's the city participating?
To be determined. The city has an appointee to the board. Mayor Sheehan has appointed the president of the neighborhood association to the board. Active participant in, but you know, there's right now you know, nothing that's being asked of the city, but as the process redevelops, there's going to be a whole lot that's asked of the city. You know, there are going to have to be variances on zoning and you know, a whole host of things, and you know, the city's going to have to play a prominent role in that as that happens.
So this should be one of the most interesting items in the discussion of the candidates for mayor for a year from this period of time, because if you say it's a multi-year process, it's going to be the next mayor.
Yeah, the next one for sure.
Yeah.
Seems right. You know, yeah, it's, you know, we're going to try to, you know, get this property redeveloped as quickly as possible. But, you know, there are things, I mean, this property is a challenging piece of property to break up, because there are, you know, tax parcels that are just screwy, nothing's clean. You know, it's built as a campus. Nobody ever thought this property would ever be broken up.
Right.
There are operating systems that control several different buildings. So, you know, Alex can't go in there and say, hey, I'll take that building there. I said, great. You gotta figure out a way to heat and cool and run it now. It's, so it's gonna take some time and, and I'm sure, I don't know this for a fact, I'm sure that as we redevelop these properties, the question of demolition is going to come up. Can we demolish any of these properties to make way for
The land
X?
value, yeah.
And Helen, you're exactly right. John Nigro says that some of these parcels are more valuable with nothing on them after they're demolished. And listen, a lot of these houses, they're very cute and quaint, but they were never built as very,
They're flats. I mean,
Right.
they're just two-family houses.
That's right.
Like, you
And-
see a million of them.
and they've all been converted, the residential ones, they have one bathroom and a bunch of rooms. That is not an easy conversion to, a residential, a family, single family or a two-family. Some of them are offices too. But John Nigro, who's the vice chairman of the group, likes to say that, this is probably the single most important parcel of property in the city of Albany. This has got to be done right. So, any other questions on the Albany County Pine Hills Land Authority? There's a lot of things that, of course I can't talk about, but, I think, this is, crucially important, particularly for those of us who live in or around the neighborhood. We all know the western edge of the campus. If you think of where Powell is the old, what is that, the old Ascension Institute, Mike?
Yep.
That park right across the street from there is terrible. What happened when the pandemic hit and all the colleges closed down, all those private landlords had empty buildings, and they wound up leasing them out primarily Section 8 housing, and it just hasn't been managed well, and it's pretty rough. There've been shootings and actually a police officer, a policewoman was attacked down there. It's pretty rough, and that if that doesn't get under control, that could affect, and it does affect the value of the campus.
So let's ask this one question, Kevin. The Alliance had an agenda prior to the College of St. Rose. You're involved in the College of St. Rose. How are you managing both? The other economic development efforts that have been very successful in the short history of this thing.
Yeah, well, it has accelerated our staffing plan. We brought Dylan on and Clayton. We've increased our administrative support. We've got Sarah Paulson and Corey Testo, who you see out at the front desk, and we've got our Ali Christofuli, who's out on maternity leave, is going to be coming back, I believe, next week. So we do have some additional hands, but we have to rely on outside contractors. We've become a little bit of a full employment program for local attorneys. We have the authority has a bankruptcy attorney, an attorney to deal with the bondholders, a bond issuance attorney, Joe Scott, and of course Tom serves as house counsel to the authority. But eventually, we're probably going to have to bring in a consultant to help with the community engagement parcel, because one of the things we have to do is we've got to, hold hearings and determine what the community and the various stakeholders want to see happen here. If we need to staff up, even consultants, you need to have staff to manage the consultants. So we do have some additional budget, but people are working pretty hard here. There's a lot going on and working hard, but it's it's important work, and I think everybody's pretty well engaged in it. And, we're, as you'll hear a little bit more about today, we're still working on, all the other stuff that we've done, through the IDA and the Altech Trust Fund and the rest, but, we do have to hire some additional people.
Any additional questions for Kevin? We're gonna keep going.
So Ken, the bid's going in on December 4th?
That's the plan, Rich. We've got the December 4th is the date that the plan has to be submitted to the bankruptcy court. So before that, the college and creditors have to sign off on our bid or on the authority's bid. So, that's why that's starting right now. And, again, Thanksgiving doesn't help matters, but, I think everybody's focused on this. The bondholders are being represented by a law firm out of Boston, Mintz Levin. They do a lot of this kind of work. And they've actually hired a local attorney, Paul Levine from Lemony Chrysler, to assist them in some of their work. But, it is a very, very compressed timeframe. And, and it may not matter, because if the college or bondholders don't accept the offer in some reasonable parameters, the authority is not going to buy this at any cost or under any condition. It's got to be
At
at
your
the right
number.
cost
Yeah.
and under the right
It's
conditions.
clear, because,
Might work to your advantage.
but their objective has to be to do this project and pay back the bond. And,
Well, pay back, right, the county and the bondholder.
right,
What other offers do they have? Are there other entities that are?
I thought I read there was something about $6 million, what did I read? $6 million.
There was in the bankruptcy court.
Can you disclose it?
Yeah.
No, this is an open session, the bankruptcy court, so the attorney for the college said they had a $6 million offer on some building, which is the only, we've heard there's some local people that might be interested in a couple of houses here or a couple of houses there. There's a nonprofit that used to lease some space from the college. They wanted to buy that house, that building they leased. But we are unaware that there is anybody interested in buying the entire campus in one transaction. The three things the authority has going for it is we've got absolute certainty of funds. We can move very quickly, relatively speaking, probably 60, 90 days to issue the debt, and that we want to buy the whole campus. And that just, from the creditor standpoint, and particularly the bondholders who are the most, the conventional wisdom is that they probably don't want to own these properties and have to sell them off one by one by one. The transaction costs, the time, every day you own these properties, they decrease in value. And there was a similar process that happened when the College of New Rochelle closed, down New Rochelle. And the college and the creditors could not come to an agreement, and the bondholders in there made a credit bid, what they call, so the bondholders bought the property. It took them 3 years to dispose of the property, and they wound up getting 30 cents on the dollar. And, there are others, Dowling College in Long Island is still sitting vacant, troubled, complicated. But this is happening, Wells College, Casanova College.
Yeah.
They're closed, and, there's some reports in the Chronicle of Higher Education that 30% of these small, independent, tuition-dependent colleges are not going to be around anymore. They're either going to go out of business or they're going to be merged into something else. As you all know from reading the papers, there was an attempt to have Touro College out of New York City come in and take over the campus, but the deal just couldn't get done. Just unfortunate. But So, yeah, a lot of dynamics at play here, but, you know, I do think the authority is in a good position, and it's, you know, everybody's, you know, the good part about this, it's not like the seller's selling a home or a piece of property that's been in their family for 50 years. So it's a relatively unemotional transaction. It's a business transaction. So you expect everybody to behave economically rational, right? You hope and you expect.
Expectations.
Right. But, you know, that's where we are right now, and, you know, we've got a very good board's very engaged, small board. Dominic Mazza, former county manager from Livingston County, is the chair. John Nigro is the vice chair. We've got Allison Walsh, who is a real estate person from ESD. We've got Sarah Reginelli, who is the county legislature's appointee, formerly with Capitalized Albany, now with Ostroff Associates. We've got Daniela Melendez, who is the head of the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association. We've got, who else here?
Allison Walsh.
Alejandro Polino.
Oh, Alejandro Polino, who is the operations person in the New York State Senate for Andrea Cousin Stewart. And Jasmine Higgins, who is a kind of affordable housing developer. Many of you who've been around for a while may have known her father, John Higgins, who was a labor attorney with Nixon Peabody, a very good guy, died very young. Unfortunately, he was my labor attorney when I had the company. So good crew. I think that's it, right? Well, yeah. So small board, you know, very focused people. Every meeting, except one, every single board member has been at, you know, very engaged. You know, everybody understands what they're there to do, and there's a, you know, an absolute meeting of minds about the direction and the strategy and everything else. So, but it is timing. It is going to take some time. And, you know, I expect if we do get the property, we will probably hire a property management company to do it. You know, there may be some resources at the county level that can help us with that. But, you know, that property has to be secured, maintained, you know, or really bad things can happen there.
Well, between now and December 4th, good luck, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, keep,
I think maybe the other minor project we're working on is the central warehouse, and I'll ask Tony Turek to talk a little bit about that as well, just where we are at that point.
Sure. Last week we had a walkthrough for the RFP that went out for demolition contractor / CM. We got an overwhelming response. The street was full of people. It's pretty crazy, actually. So we have over 40 potential respondents at the moment. We got an addendum that we have to get back out. Thank you, Tom, for your edits. That is over 65 individual questions. That's kind of taking out some of the repeated questions over and over again. Most of them, actually the number one question is, can I get more time? But other than that question, which is usually the tough question, there's a lot in there about specifically, you know, just your typical stuff, you know, going over the report, seeing if they can get any more information than we have. Obviously, this is a difficult situation because the history of the building really precedes us right now. There's currently still an owner of the building, and then we're sort of anticipating being the owner, so there's that sort of complication. But overall, I think we're in really good shape. We should have so the end of the bid period is the 27th as of now, which if we haven't gotten it in, we have to get it out on Friday is what we said we would do. It doesn't leave a ton of time, so it's something we'll talk about. But My anticipation is we'll definitely have somebody ready to go by the end of the year. And then hopefully we could actually get into demolition, assuming that the bids come in with a cost not to exceed just been put on it. Which obviously adds risk for them, so that's why they want obviously time, but we should be able to proceed to second quarter, potentially 2025. That's an estimate. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not saying it's definite, but that would be the hope.
There are weather considerations too, right?
Correct. If we don't want the expense to go way up, so if you start doing work in the winter, you have to heat the building for the abatement. That's a Department of Labor standard, so that's going to add significant cost. So if you wait until it gets warm enough, you don't have to heat the building anymore. Obviously, that can help with that cost not to exceed number.
Yeah, it's expected that the environmental remediation may take up, 30 to 40% of the total demolition cost. So big deal. And we've also, got the western and northern traffic for Amtrak literally abutting the building on the southern side of the building. So that's all gonna be handled, and for any of you who've ever dealt with railroads, they're very difficult entities to deal with. But all of that is going to be on the contractor to respond to. So, once the building is down, the Alliance will have the site and will be in the position of determining how and what to redevelop the site as. But right now, everybody, governor's office, ESD, county executive are all very interested in getting the building down.
Because they want to take credit for it. So how many bids do you have so far?
We don't have any bids yet,
Oh, no
because they're not
bids.
until the 27th, but we've been asking prospective respondents to register with us with like a little form.
Mhm.
And we have unique registration with like over 40 people, over 40
Okay.
companies. I don't know where they're all coming. I mean, it's pretty remarkable actually, considering that they've been busy.
A lot of these are tire kickers, you can just.
Okay.
So that's going to be taking up some more time. And if there are no further questions on that, we're working closely with the county executive's office, Mike and his team, and county exec. But that's moving along. Maybe I'll turn it over to Kevin Allen, if you don't mind, to talk a little bit about some of our project work that we can do.
Kev, do we want to make a request to go into executive session so we can talk about, in case proprietary information?
Now, talk about what you can in open session.
Okay.
And determine if there's anything you need to.
Excellent. So projects on a little bit smaller scale, but very proud to be working on are two-stage applications that we're going to review today. Just so the board is aware, this is the first step of the approval process, and then we take them to the stage committee, which will probably be in about 2.5 weeks. We're waiting for some paperwork from the municipalities in terms of the secret determination, stuff like that. The first one is Ecovative. They're in the process of going through a major expansion. They have two products that
We have that here.
Yes, it's page, starts on about page 30.
More bacon?
Just let me just give a little introduction to Ecovative. This is the ideal type of company. This is a spin-off out of RPI. Two individuals, two students who started researching mycelium, the kind of underpinnings of most mushrooms. They started building packing material, biodegradable packing material. They found some great traction over in Europe, not as much in this country. From there, they've migrated on to some other products, which is the subject of what Kevin's here. But this is they've raised a couple $100 million in equity over the years. And a homegrown company located in Green Island, great workforce. This is exactly the kind of company that we want to see, grow and thrive and prosper. And of course, you know, as the company has grown, they've got executives from some of the big food companies and some of the big agribusinesses on their board now. You know, they've got pressure to go anywhere and everywhere around the country. So, you know, this is about trying to keep them here in Albany County. So go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, so they're in the process right now to meet the My Bacon demand, which is part of the My Forest Foods. They need to do about a 6.8 million expansion, and that includes packaging equipment, growing equipment, preparation equipment, commercial kitchens. So what they're talking about is they were looking for 681,000, which is the 1/10. There's a 10%, 1 to 10 match that's required to get the stage funding. A lot of job activity. They currently have, hold on. They currently have 114 employees, 75 were created over the last 2 years, all due to My Bacon. And they are looking at potentially 116 full-time with 86 part-time. Of that, 2 will be professional, 6 will be skilled, 108 will be semi-skilled, and there'll be some no-skill required jobs. So the people that we need to help find jobs, they will be available at this company. Very diverse workforce. So they have the My Bacon, and then they're looking at, they have another company called Forager, which is working in the textile business and trying to create plant-based hides so that they can make bags, shoes, accessories, that type of thing. That's what the fundraising is all for. It's these 2 new divisions. The main division that Kevin talked about was the packaging. That's the forge. They're still doing that. That's their highest revenue division at this time. They also bought a company over in the Netherlands 2 years ago for spawn and substrate. It's a mixture of all the biomaterials you need, and then they push into the product, the mushroom spores, and suddenly they can ship it out to large mushroom manufacturers and other companies working in the mycelium space. They are recognized as the leading mycelium-based research company in the world. Found articles from all different kinds of science magazines. As Kevin said, they've hired some people out of major food producers. The gentleman that is the CEO worked for Nestle, worked for Cadbury, works for used to work for an allergy-based food company. So they have built out a very, very strong team. Evan and Gavin, who started the company back in 2007 while they were students, are still with the company. But because of the raise, everybody's kind of ownership has been diluted a little bit. But as Kevin said, these are the type of companies that you just really want to see grow and expand here in the county. You know, we don't take 116 full-time and 186 part-time jobs lightly. That's serious for a company their size. They're located in Green Island. It should be mentioned that, you know, there could be they have offices, I believe, in Canada, Chicago, now the Netherlands with the substrate company. So this is a place to keep them headquartered here in Albany County. So they're looking for 681,000 to build out the next phase of commercial kitchen, and because that's part of it. We also allow for engineering. They have actually, because of their product, they've actually brought engineers in-house to help them design what they need to build this out the right way. They also have vertical farming. They're in over 100,000 square feet down in Green Island, and they'll probably require more space as time goes on. There is a resolution to approve this, sending to the full stage committee.
So what page is the resolution?
55.
Yeah.
it's exciting to think that they come out of RPI and then they stay here to date. And if everything I read about the new president of RPI is correct, he went to encourage a lot more of this sort of activity, which has been missing over the last 25 years. So are there any other questions for Kevin?
Yeah, I'll just talk about the resolution for a minute, and I know there's some new board members. This entire program, what's called the stage plan, was created by local law in 2022. In that law, and in the regulations that were adopted pursuant to that local statute, we, this corporation, is identified as the program administrator. So that's why we're talking about this today. And then the board's role specifically, the staff reviews, intakes the applications, the board approves these to go to the next level. You do not decide to fund or not to fund. The funding is determined at a different level, at the level above you. That's called the stage committee. Those are appointees from various parts of the county government. And that is the funding level, but this board, and what you see before you today is a resolution to recommend that this application go to the next level to be considered for funding. So that's what you're doing today.
So is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for Kevin or Tom? All in favor? Is there anyone opposed? We'll send that on.
Thank you. It should also be noted, and I'm sorry I didn't include this prior, we will be presenting a loan application at the Albany County Business Development Corporation as administrator of the tomorrow for approval for working capital to also assist with their expansion. The next one is Schoenwetter Enterprises. You all know them as Belinsky's. A very large, very successful, organic, chemical-free chicken sausage manufacturer located, mailing address City of Cohoes, actually located in the town of Colony. They are currently under contract to buy the Comfortex building. We're working through, she's working through all her due diligence at this point. But what she's looking to do is a expansion from 24,000 square feet to keep her existing building, and then we'll expand out into the former Comfortex building of 103,000 square feet. She's going to bring in some services that she currently uses subcontractors for. One is she ships her product down into Connecticut for a service, and then she uses a cold storage facility out of New Jersey. Both of those will come in-house. She will increase her production capacity as she is turning away business at this time. Her family bought the business from the Belinskys in the mid-'80s, and she has taken it over. It's a woman-owned business. She has one of the most diverse workforces I've seen. Many of her employees have been 10, 15 years plus. She treats them well. Many of them walk to work. A significant majority are located near the plant. If you know where the plant is, it's kind of hidden. It's in the town of Colony, but you have to drive through the city streets of Cohoes to get there. So not ideal, but back in the 1920s, you built a neighborhood around a factory, and now that we have a neighborhood around a factory, they're upset that trucks drive by every day. Understood. We understand that. This would allow for them to avoid the truck traffic going through the city. But as we get to stage, we're looking at, it's sustainable technology and green energy. Organic chicken sausage, no fertilizers are used, no biotics, no nothing. Very clean, very healthy. So any runoff from fertilizers that you use for their feed doesn't exist. Also, the inputs to raise 100 pounds of chicken is significantly less than the inputs to raise 100 pounds of beef or pork. By moving some of her exterior services in-house, not only will that be a potential revenue stream for them, But doing the estimate of trucks going to Connecticut and trucks coming from New Jersey, we're looking at saving at least 100 to 125,000 miles of highway truck traffic by bringing everything in-house. Again, as we look at it's a $15 million total project, and again, I think it's the jobs that speak favorably to this application as well. Currently, 65 jobs at her 24,000 square foot facility. She is estimating an additional 87 would be needed to, she can do like kind of a shared shift, start in the morning and work later. She could do 2 shifts. There may be an opportunity for her to do outside services for other food service companies in the region, because there is not that piece of equipment. The closest piece of equipment is about 120 miles away. In New York, it's out in Western New York. But we're looking at creating 87 jobs. There's going to be warehouse, production, quality assurance, some management, supervisors, administrative. We are recommending $600,000 to her for her $15 million project. And this company, I just love. We approved them yesterday for the public hearing for potential IDA benefits. We're working with the local municipality on the pilot agreement and what that will look like, but we're going to do IDA benefits through the Albany County IDA. We're looking at a stage grant, and then she will be applying for the Altech Loan Fund as well. Have to work with her bank, which is currently working on the structure. It'll probably be a 504, which is an SBA program through Pursuit Lending, and we'll come in and probably help with a large piece of equipment or an equipment purchase. She's also looking to upgrade a 40-year-old, 80% efficient oil burner for her smokehouse to a 93% efficient gas-fired boiler, which would replace that, which she's going through about 19,000 gallons of home heating oil to run that. So again, everything she's doing is making the world just a little bit better place. Step by step, this bringing this in-house and into Albany County will be a huge win. It should also be noted that while meeting with Stacy for, I think, about the last 3 years, Kev, she is also looking at sites right now in Missouri and South Carolina. And this is an effort to keep her and her growing company in Albany County. And I think the stars have aligned to do that. We want to just support her as best we can.
Kevin's also brought ESD, and there's a possibility that something would happen with the state folks on the company as well. And for any of you, notwithstanding Stacy's claims about the health benefits of organic chicken sausage, Mr. Polinsky, who was raised on bologna, liverwurst, and pork sausages, still lives next door to the plant at over 100 years old. So
Can't do that on health.
So eat your
I'm
pork.
saying the same thing,
Good message. So, quick question, when you mentioned the truck traffic, you just mean the number of trips would reduce because they're doing it in-house, not that they're going to redirect it or build a different road or something, right?
No, it would be, they would, instead of using a company in Connecticut and a company in New Jersey, all their product would stay in Albany County and be processed start to finish. So that 120 miles to Connecticut, at least 6 days a week would be stopped, and then 1 to 2 days a week from New Jersey would be stopped. So that truck traffic would no longer exist for her business.
And there has been a little friction between the company and some of the neighbors there on the truck traffic, and as a
No one
response.
likes trucks,
No.
but they want their items.
Yes.
And as a response, the city placed a moratorium on truck traffic in that neighborhood from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Yes. 6 to 6 or 7
We
to
let
7.
them do that? Who let them do that?
Well, it's
That's
interesting, it's probably not a lawful ordinance, but, you know, it's just, this project just solves a lot of problems and, you know, Polinsky's is a beloved, you know, business and, it just solves a lot of problems. It helps them with their business model, you know, and this woman, has grown this business, you know, unbelievably, you know, there was this upsurge during the pandemic, and she really just couldn't manufacture enough to meet the demand because of some of these issues on the truck traffic and the moratoriums. So this should solve all of that. You know?
She's currently turning away business, and you may not recognize a Belinsky sausage when you go to the local market, but she does white label for all the largest.
If you
grocery
had
stores.
organic chicken sausage,
Probably.
chances are it's probably Belinsky's. Because
I know.
it's.
Can't say I'm familiar.
Onions or Price Chopper or Groceries. So,
All right, it says 9:52.
I'll look at it, maybe I'll have to try it.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for the recommendation of the.
Is there a second? Are there any other questions for Kevin? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So when you're in advanced middle age, you're not allowed to eat very much bacon, and you don't eat sausages very often. I'm eating them in regular topics.
Yeah, when you get to, you gotta do it right.
Thank you.
This is great for this community.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
These are
Thank you.
wonderful
Thank
companies.
Thank you.
And I like the idea that he's 100 years old.
That's great.
So I have a quick question. What do we do as a board to, let people know about this?
Yeah.
Like the first group with the My Bacon, and they're gonna be bringing on what, you said 87 more employees. Like, what do we do? Like, is there a way to, because those are jobs that are just skilled jobs, right?
Semi-skilled and up, yes.
Okay, so what do we do to sort of make the connection with the high school community, the college community? Like, should there be a requirement when these, for internships?
Yes, that's an excellent question. As part of the grant agreement, we will ask them to outline their community commitments, which includes working with BOCES, working with the local high schools, working with the Department of Labor, talking about how they hire people so that they continue to have that diverse workforce. One thing that Stacy did down at Belinsky's is she actually held a job fair at the former Comfort Tex building where there's about 50 employees left, has taken applications from almost all of them and has letters ready to go. Once she understands that the transaction is moving forward, she has hiring letters ready to go to offer them positions in the new public stuff.
And we stay on top of that.
Oh, yeah.
That's the cultural law stuff?
Nope, Tom wrote the conference written out.
Is it in that?
And we will
No, I
check,
thought
they
it was just
are
gonna
Yeah,
talk
required
about
just make a copy of those
60
two
days into the new year by end of February or end of March.
Yeah, so there's a 6-year term on most of these agreements, that each year they certify what they've done, as Kevin said, for community. That's where you would find things that you're asking about, but they have certain requirements, just employment in general. If they don't hit the numbers they talk about, there's the ability to recapture this grant money. That's not simple, I don't wanna say that's a simple process, because we will have already given them that money at that point, but there is a contractual right that we would have to recapture.
But I think you're right about the fact, Kevin, that these are very positive events for the Albany County and for the community. And at some point during the year, or maybe multiple times during the year, we should put out the progress that is being made. Now, we don't make the ultimate award for money, but once it's finished, we certainly have been involved with the process. That's very good reporting today, Kevin.
Thank you.
We do have Baker Associates working on our 2024 annual report, which we'll be releasing in January, which will kind of go through all the stuff that we've done over the course of the year.
Let's, keeping in mind the time is late, Tom, do you want to talk about this agreement?
I can very quickly, we previously authorized this board in July of 2024 to basically negotiate and execute an agreement with the Albany County Pine Hills Land Authority to staff their organization, front their expenses. That agreement was formulated. It is very similar. We have existing agreements with the IDA, the CRC, the Industrial Development Agency, Capital Resource Corporation, Albany County Business Development Corp. We do this function because they're economic development entities. It fits squarely within our mission of coordinating the economic development activities within the county. So we have an agreement now. It was approved by you in July to go ahead and get this agreement. The Pine Hills Board approved it at their last meeting. So the sum and substance of it is it's $150,000 a year they will pay us for the staffing time. We worked out the staffing time with Amy as far as and it's an estimate, right? I mean, we don't know the exact number of hours yet, but that could be fine-tuned each year as we move forward. And they also will compensate us for any third-party expenses. So as Kevin represented the Employment Act for lawyers, those expenses should be covered. The ones that are related to the Pine Hills Authority, those should be covered. Again, the risk to us if we do this going in is the bonding transaction. If for some reason our bid is not accepted, we don't go through this financing, then there is no money for this Pine Hills Authority. But we talked about that in July when the board authorized this, and but again, their mission is exactly in line with our mission. It's an enormous piece of property in the heart of the city, strikes squarely on our mission and their mission, which is to economic development. So that's it.
So let us end today on a very high note for Albany County. With the leadership of the county exec and the support of the county legislature, the Alliance was awarded funding for arts and culture. In order to work through the details of all of this, a council was developed and with several representatives from the county legislature and several other people that have been mentioned before. So I'll just go remind everyone who these people are. And I had asked the county executive if everyone had to be from Albany County, and he said no, because he understood who the individual was that we wanted to add to this group. So this group includes Christine Miles, who was the retired former director of the Albany Institute. It includes Linda Jackson-Chalmers, who has been very active in the community over a very long period of time. It includes Judy Gilmore, who ran the Opelka Gallery, but is involved in that lighting project that just took place last weekend, about 2 weekends ago in Troy, and has been involved in the original Bloomberg project of that was an effort between Albany, Schenectady, and Rensselaer County years ago. It includes John Regan, who is on the a lawyer at the medical center, but is on the board of the Ag. Yes, and myself. Oh, and the fun but very interesting non-Albany County person is Len Tanzillo, who really represents a whole segment of the community, which is the arts and emerging arts in the community. We elected John Regan the chairman of this little group. They have gone ahead and created a request for expressions of interest, is what it's called, issued by the Albany County Alliance. It's on our website. I hope it's on the county website. We've really tried to copy patent the way the county approached this with the AACA money for arts and culture. We expect to have responses to this request by November 29th, with some of the allocations by December 20th. The council is looking at this in two pieces. Some of the larger arts and cultural organizations that have budgets, that have balance sheets, that have audits, will be in the first group. The smaller community arts and cultural organizations will be in the second group. The funding can range from approximately $25,000 to $500,000. That was the range. The council is thinking in terms of $25,000 to $100,000. And we hope there'll be significant requests from organizations within Albany County. When the county did this the first time, and Luke had much more hair when we did that the first time, there were 31 arts and cultural and tourist organizations that were awarded funding during the program. So this is not new. This is wonderful support for the county executive and the county legislature. I'm very hopeful that if they're satisfied with what we do, they'll include funding in future budgets so that this is an annual effort. I'd love to answer any question anyone around the table has.
Did we receive this electronically?
Yes.
You did.
Yeah, feel free to send it out to any of your,
Yeah.
colleagues and.
I think the key, Luke was out of the room when I said it's on the Alliance website. Is it on the county now?
If it's not, we can, I think we probably did social media on it for sure, and we had the press release, but we can add another one.
Right, and the county executive did issue a press release, I think Friday afternoon, about this effort. So, as someone who's cared deeply about arts and culture here in the capital region, I personally am very grateful to the county executive and the county legislature for this support. I hope, and it is the hope of this little council, and the council can only make recommendations, and they will make recommendations. But I hope that this will be expanded. We certainly are trying to encourage the other governmental areas that should be involved with this. And it is the hope that perhaps with the help of the county executive and other people that are involved in this, that we can go to other business leaders to see if we can leverage this money over a period of time. That type of leverage, that type of community support has been sorely lacking over the last 7 to 10 years. If there are any questions, please.
One thing, the goal is to try to get $500,000 out before the end of the year. So that will require another meeting of the Alliance Board to approve those recommendations by the council. So I apologize, but we'll try to, if we can just get a quorum of the board, we'll move that along. We'll send the information to everybody. But again, unfortunately, these have to be done in person.
Small groups are encouraged, I assume.
Yes.
Small.
It could be here in Albany County.
Yes. And there has to be a business plan. And that's why we're trying to do this in 2 tranches or 2 sections. One of, I don't want to describe them as the usual suspects, the way Captain Renault does, but one in terms of the arts and cultural organizations that do have budgets, balance sheets, and business plans, and which should be easier to review. And the second, which we take up in the first quarter of next year, in terms of smaller organizations. As I say with awards, as small as $25,000. In the county AACA thing, there were several awards that were even smaller because the request came in for smaller amounts of money, which the little committee that we put together for arts and culture was able to satisfy. And then we worked out so that almost everyone that had applied received something. So that's the goal is to help these arts and cultural organizations, many of whom have not recovered from the pandemic. And most people don't understand how severe that was. But it's also to do something that is distinguished enough so that the county executive and legislature want to put this into the budget in subsequent years. So if you have organizations that fit this criteria, please let them know this opportunity exists. We will, of course, keep this open into the future in an effort to bring in as many people from the community, organizations that operate here in Albany County as possible.
So when you express your interests, you have to have a business plan.
There's going to be a response that will have criteria for applying for here. All right, now, do we need to have an executive session?
Nothing that I have, Mr. Chairman.
Does any member of the board want to have an executive session for some reason that Tom approves? No? All right,
This was a lot.
well.
I'm secretary now.
I think that we should congratulate Kevin and his staff for the amount of productivity that they've been able to accomplish in this last year. But all they've done is raise expectations for next year. And there are lots of positive things that could happen in the next 12 months. So
There is, Alan, if you want to grab one of those, there are gift baskets here for all of you. We unfortunately can't pay any of you director's fees, but we do, staff here went to Krause's and got everybody a little gift basket to use. We thought this was going to be the last meeting of the year, but we may actually have one more.
Unfortunately, that'll be a short session just on that.
yes, one item. All right, we need a motion to adjourn.
Oh,
Oh, everyone, in a second.
Second.
A very happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh.